today, so chronologically, that's where we've been. We've been building out this network. We've been setting it up in ways that allow customers to have access to it, that try and make for the availability of information as far out as we can push it, as far out as we can make it available. So one of the things that we're doing today, though, is we're changing those applications. I mean, the internet applications that utilize browsers and HTML, are really beginning to not be nearly as interesting. Mark was talking about this, app economy that's just exploding out there. And so, desktop applications aren't even very interesting to talk about, but a lot of the things that we're doing on desktops today don't include the browser. They utilize internet connectivity, but they don't engage the browser, because we think that the world has begun to fairly rapidly evolve beyond the browser, which is really about a destination going to some place, to applications that just invoke the notion of connection, delivering information where you are, when you need it, how you need it. So some of these apps we have, like Desktop Tracker today, actually have these things called Toast, that just pop up on your desktop. They're actively monitoring shipments that are out there. They're giving you information, at the point of time of delivery. They're notifying you on your BlackBerry, on your other kinds of smartphones, in ways, that interact with you in a workflow and in a sequence of things that allow you to take advantage of information as it happens, not having to go to a browser, not having to go then to a destination like FedEx.com to do business, but rather, having an interactive experience that as events happen out in the real world, they begin to take place in notifiers and events that get you information that you need, how you need it. There are also an interesting set of cloud services becoming available that we think are important. I'll have to admit, I just don't travel with a laptop anymore. It's not a, they're too heavy, and and there's just a lot that I don't need anymore on the laptop. There's so much that I can do with my smartphones, and I carry a couple. I've got an iPhone in my pocket. I've got a BlackBerry in my pocket. I have an Android that that I use from time to time, and I certainly have an iPad. But one of the things that we recognized at FedEx was that one of the services that you need, that's important, that needs to expose itself into this mobile world, is the ability to occasionally print something. So, so we have FedEx Office in our arsenal out there, and we're launching, what we think is a great cloud service that's enabling you to, as you're out on the road, and you get an attachment on your BlackBerry, and we all know what it's like to kind of be using the pinch browser to try and see what an attachment looks like, or wish you could hand it to a client if it's something new. We think that it's really important to have print capability from this mobile world. So that's the kind of service through a web service that we're trying to expose to the world now. Not just shipment services, but kind of the functional services of print and the capabilities that come with that allow you to tap into our network, and to do so through frameworks. These are developed for the Android, for the RIM, for the iPhone, for the iPad. For the phones that are out there, you can get to these ePrint services. And of course, you can also get to kind of a lot of the other standard FedEx services. And it's not that I'm trying to sell these things to you. I'm just trying to, make sure that, you're, to get the story across of how we think about the edge and how we're trying to engage with the edge. And of course, these things are location aware. It's not helpful to be able to print something if you can't find the nearest FedEx office location to print it to, and how to get there, and how to engage with it that way. So we think that those kinds of cloud services really are changing the way we interact from an enterprise standpoint and from a personal standpoint into spaces and places and connections. The social network that's out there, this is kind of a game that exists on Facebook, but for a while it was the fastest growing application on Facebook out there. It's called Send a Package. And in Send a Package, it was really just something that people used as a little widget. It doesn't do anything practical. It just allows you to send somebody a little virtual package. Now we had some problems with send a package at first because it was we found out it was pretty easily hackable, and so we had to add a little security to it. This world is something you have to be concerned about. But as we were hacking it, we've also found out something a little bit disturbing, that almost everything people were sending was naughty. It was like people were saying, here, have a little FedEx package, and you open and go, whoa, hey, how about that? There's no telling what will happen in the virtual world, but the idea here is that these social networks are, they're so powerful, and they're so, so much a part of the way we connect that, driving to engagement with the social networks is something that we value, even when it's a game, even when it's something silly like send a package. It's how do you make yourselves relevant out there in a social world that values those forms of connection and drives them to be an important part of the way we connect. So you may say, what about RFID? Around the turn of this millennium, around 2000, you could hardly pick up a magazine that, and it wasn't just the IT and communication rags, it was Time magazine and Business Week, that every cover, Fortune seemed to have RFID on it. And it was all about, this kind of connection. We were going to be able to see where everything was at the edge. We were going to be able to utilize RFID technologies in ways that, were very important to the stuff that FedEx does. That's how people tended to think about it. And I do think that there's a huge amount of potential there, but that's not where we found the primary potential of RFID technologies. Where we found the primary potential with the physics of passive RFID tags was in managing our assets. And to this day, we have some incredibly important applications out there with regard to managing the assets that we have in our fleets and in our containers and things like that. Because when vehicles arrive in some of our big sorting facilities, they're automatically arrived into the system through RFID tags that are on the sides of the trailers and the trucks that are out there. And then the yard management and dispatch management systems kick in and begin to schedule the unload and the sortation of the things that are arriving in those yards. Likewise, when they leave those yards, including aircraft, they're automatically dispatched through RFID technologies. But these aren't the little EPC tags that were getting so much attention. These are the battery-powered tags that you bolt on to the side of the asset with readers that have properties, that allow you to read them from some distance. The EPC tag, and we were always part of the EPC consortium. It was something that we engaged in at the very beginning of that cycle, but we saw some characteristics about it that we thought were not particularly suitable to the package movement technologies that were out there. When we looked at the EPC tags, we saw a device that was very passive, that had properties that said for 3 meters you can interrogate this device. It has static information on it that had to be more or less printed at the time of the shipment. And so it didn't change as the status of it wasn't stateful with regard to changing its status as shipments moved through the system. It was a static tag that in fact didn't have the properties that we felt were most important for the future of exploring the edge of shipments, exploring the edge of logistics. So where do you go from there? It's 10 years later. RFID tags are still interesting technology for inventory control and a few things like that, but they haven't really revolutionized Walmart's logistical system. They haven't revolutionized the product systems at Procter & Gamble, a lot of the things that they were intended to do. And we're still a bit of a ways away from being able to do that. But we do think there's some very interesting active technology that's coming out, and this is sort of the edge of where we are in the Today system. We launched this year SenseAware. SenseAware is a really interesting device that we've put out that allows us to do active communications with shipments, and here's how it works. We've launched it in the life sciences world because we think that life sciences are, biotechnology, pharma, medical devices, all of those kinds of things. They're very high value shipments. They tend to have a very important journey that they need to make. They tend to be monitored in a lot of ways for temperature, for velocity, for location, for those kinds of things. So what you see in the picture here, is a rack of SensaWares that our earliest customers in SensaWare are using. They charge and they're ready to go in the rack. And then what you do is you take it out of the rack and you scan the SensaWare device, and then you scan the package and you put the SensaWare into the package. And what this does then is it enables for us as shippers, as well as for our customer, it enables a platform that allows you to watch the journey of the package. It enables you to ping the package. It allows you to use geofencing technology to understand when the package moves through particular thresholds. It has a 16-channel GPS sensor in it. It has a tri-mode cellular radio. So it has the ability to be pinged, but it also has the ability to notify us in the event of temperature warnings, in the event of, light is a very interesting thing that this moat does. The sensor moat, am I holding it upside down the whole time? The sensor moat inside here has a light predictor. Well, one of the things when you're in an enclosed box and you're making a journey through a transportation system like ours, darkness is a good thing. We like that. Light entering a package before it's actually arrived at its destination is almost always a bad thing. Somebody's stealing it, it's been ripped open, there's very little good about that. So we monitor light, we monitor velocity, we monitor vibration, we monitor temperature. We worked with a company out here called Crossbow that helped us develop the moat. Today this is the edge for us of location awareness for shipments. This is where that chronology has led us to today, is the ability to actually look out for very high value shipments. Now this is not a throwaway device. This is not like an RFID EPC tag that at the end of its journey. Most of the implementations of this, other than in extremely high value shipments, are closed loop systems, where if Medtronic is shipping a set of surgical implant devices, a hip replacement or something like that, they always ship to the surgeon more than one size. It's a kit that has a number of options for the surgeon, and they never know exactly what they're going to need. Well, just as important as it is to track that shipment to the surgeon and to the operation, make sure it's going to get there on time, it's also important that they return the unused components in that shipment, the sizes that weren't used. So it's a closed loop system that allows the package to come back and be monitored both ways. And that's very expensive and valuable inventory. But it's a collaboration environment that really allows us to do some interesting things that, that we hadn't been able to do in the past.